Hi, everybody. It is so great to see you all here, and thank you so much for choosing to spend this hour with us. Welcome to this workshop. We are sponsored by the Maryland Online Leadership Institute. We're known as MOLLE. My name is Shinta Hernandez, and I am the MOLLE Director. I'm also the founding dean of the virtual campus at Montgomery College in Montgomery County, Maryland. And again, I can see so many of you from all over the place, so it's really great to be able to host you here today. Before we get started, because I do see some new faces here, I want to give a brief history of MOLLE. MOLLE is the professional development arm of Maryland Online. We're experiencing a redesign or a reimagination, if you will, and part of that reimagination is including more timely and relevant professional development. And part of that professional development is this year-round series of webinars and workshops. And we've chosen topics that are highly relevant, very timely, because we recognize how important it is for you to be participating in these events and to really get the most out of what you're getting. And so these topics, like the one that you're going to be listening to today, hopefully will help you enhance your knowledge and your experience and your leadership skills, especially around online education and certainly more broadly higher education. So the event today is one of the monthly MOLLE workshops that is a part of our Expert Insights series. I also want to share with you that we do have an upcoming retreat that is in person at the end of June. It is June 27th, so it's an opportunity for those of you who can make it out to Montgomery College in Germantown, Maryland, to be in a space where you can do a lot of networking, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of thinking and doing. So we're really excited about that, and I'll share a link to that along with a link to other MOLLE events in the chat toward the end of the workshop. Now, before I introduce you to our presenters and facilitator, I do have one more housekeeping, and that is that toward the end of this workshop, I'm going to post the link to a post-workshop survey. Please take a few minutes to fill that out. If you can fill it out before the week is over, we would really appreciate it. We value your feedback, and that really also helps us to consider additional topics and just continue enhancing the things that we do. And I'm also going to share with you the MOLLE website that has the registration links for all of the upcoming workshops and webinars for the rest of the year. All right, now to the fun stuff. So I have the honor and pleasure of introducing to you our two presenters and our facilitator. So we have two highly knowledgeable presenters today. Dr. Marina Aminy, she is the Executive Director of the California Virtual Campus in the California Community Colleges system. And we also have Dr. Dana Gullo, who's the Associate Dean for Teaching, Learning, and Technology at Cecil College here in Maryland. And our skillful facilitator is Dr. Michelle Kloss, who's the Associate Provost of Assessment and Institutional Effectiveness at Carroll Community College, also in Maryland. So I'm really excited about this workshop on leading a culture of belonging in online learning environments. So without further ado, let me turn the stage over to Dr. Michelle Kloss.
Thank you, Shinta. Welcome, everyone. I echo Shinta's warm welcome to you. You are in for a treat today. I've had a little bit of an advanced viewing of the presentation by Dr. Aminy and Dr. Gullo today, and it's going to be great. I think you'll find that it provides a macro and a micro look at belonging in the online environment. I'm not going to say much more in the way of introductions because our presenters have very special introductions built into the presentation, but I will encourage you to please post your questions as you have them throughout the presentation, and we will get to them at the conclusion of the workshop. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Aminy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. It is morning here in California still, so good morning from my end of the world. And just a quick slideshow here, but I don't want this to be death by PowerPoint, so I've absolutely asked Michelle to please interrupt and tell us what the questions are in chat, and please share any kind of questions coming my way. So a little bit about myself and where I come from. I am the Executive Director for the California Virtual Campus in the California Community College system. And if you don't know a lot about our system, there are 116 community colleges in our system. It's ginormous. It's a pretty big boat to steer in terms of making change. We serve about 2 million students a year. And we are the world's largest educational organization, or system. And so my organization, the CVC, California Virtual Campus, we support online education, digital technologies and infrastructure and course sharing for the entire California community college system. So that's a little bit about where I come from, a little bit about me. I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan, and I am an English language learner. So English is my second language. I didn't speak English till I was about 6 or 7. And so my entire family immigrated here. We were refugees of war, in fact, in the 80s. I am a first generation college student. Eventually, I went on, thanks to all of the supports that I encountered in my colleges, my counselors, my professors, and all of the financial aid that I received. I went on to get my bachelor's, my master's, and my PhD in education from UC Berkeley. And so that's a little bit about my background. And what I want to talk a little bit about today that you'll get from me is the macro. Michelle and Shinta kind of hinted that there's kind of a macro, a big picture, and a little picture. I'm sort of the big picture. So I'm going to share some strategies and examples with you about ways that we can create belonging at the policy level or at the institution level. And these decisions are good, I think, definitely for faculty, but certainly for people in roles like director or dean or chair, which I saw some of you drop in chat already, that those are your roles. So I hope that these will be useful for you in your various roles. And I've really tried to be as specific as possible, because I think it's useful to sort of see some examples. All of the examples that I'll share today are from my system, for the California community colleges, but I suspect that they'll also resonate with you a little bit. So I'll jump right into it with some of my beliefs. I know this screen has a lot of text on it. I don't normally do this, but these are kind of my beliefs about our students that I thought it's important to sort of set you up with. I believe that students come in with cultural capital and life experiences, and they don't need us to parent them or patronize them or control them, but they do need our support. And there's sort of this line between parenting them and controlling them, and then also supporting them. There's a line there that I hope we can navigate together today when I give you those examples. And also that I truly believe that I'm an educator, you're all educators, that we're well-intentioned, and that we never, ever, ever intend to harm students or do anything wrong, but that sometimes, even though we're well-intentioned, our actions are a bit off the mark. And student services and institutional policies can be powerful ways to support those students like me as I was growing up, who needed some resources and support. However, sometimes our processes are used to control, surveil, alienate our students. They don't create belonging. What's also interesting is that the folks involved in our colleges, people like you, the faculty, the deans, the directors, the staff, sometimes I'll hear from them, from all of you, that, we don't always feel like we're the decision makers in terms of how things end up the way they did when they are a little bit off the mark. So that'll be an interesting too as well, to kind of be like, all right, well, what's my role and my agency in these examples? And so kind of this concept of paternalism, creating these like well-intentioned barriers for our students to kind of help them, but they're not always helpful, or ending up in kind of the wrong place with them. So with that, I kind of thought we could start with like, well, where does belonging start? It starts with the right team, right? Building the right team that looks like the students that we represent ideally. So there's really this need for a diverse and inclusive faculty and staff team. I live in Orange County, California. And if you don't know anything about Orange County besides the Housewives of Orange County show, it's not a terribly diverse part of California. And so a lot of times what we'll hear from our colleges locally is, oh, we need to diversify our staff and our faculty and our management team. And so they're well-intentioned because they want to create belonging, right? They want their students to come in and see people that look like them and identify with them and have representation in their colleges. And so, does the faculty body represent that diversity? What is the institution doing to recruit and retain diversity? And why would faculty and staff of color choose to work for your institution? So my neighboring college in my area is now for the very first time a Hispanic serving institution, which means that they hit a certain threshold of like, I think it's 25% of Hispanic identifying students. And that comes with certain funding as well, and then certain programming that they can do to support those students. And so for the first time, they're like, oh, we have 25% of our students are now Hispanic. It's amazing. We've never had this shift in our population. But when we look at our staff and faculty, they're overwhelmingly white. And so let's do something to create belonging for our students so that when they come in through our doors, they see people that look like them and represent their community as well. So I'm going to give you an example, and then I would love in chat for you to let me know what you think. So here's an example of a college in my area, South Orange County Community College District here up there. That's where it's for a dean position. And it's such an important position because it's for instructional support. And so they oversee tutoring and you know, these are like really important services. And it's fine. It pays really well, has a nice little thing here. But then if you start reading through it, all you need to know, if this is the time in your life when you want to make a difference in the lives of communities we serve, you may want to keep reading. Love that. If you want to motivate and inspire students, Saddleback College is a great place for you. If you are not comfortable examining what you're doing on a continuous basis and using data to make decisions, you probably won't be able to contribute to our continuing success. If you do not desire to spend much time interacting with students and faculty, please do not apply at Saddleback College. If you do not understand and cannot effectively address what drives student achievement gaps by race and ethnicity, you should definitely not apply at Saddleback College. If you lack effective communication skills to motivate, blah, 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 do not apply. And then if you live, breathe, eat success, student success, it's the place for you. And then there's additional information. So take a moment and chat and just tell me what you think about this job description. And remember, this is South Orange County. They're trying to attract diverse applicants. This is an important job, and they put this out. What do you think? Is this going to create the diverse faculty and staff team that they need, management team, to kind of create belonging with students? And Robin says, well, that's one way to make folks read it. Yeah, definitely. Couldn't take your eyes off of it. I see Colleen saying run. No positives here. We don't like it. Clever, no. Yeah, so I'm definitely seeing a number of kind of, you know, comments where it's like, this is not that appealing, right? If I'm a person of color and I'm gonna go move to this community, and maybe like there's already people that don't look like me there, and then I kind of read this, it's passive aggressively giving us some vibes, right? There's some vibes. All right, it does not feel genuine to me. Great, thank you for those great comments. This ad could have more positive feel. Okay, great. So let's fix it. Let's see if we could fix this problem and do this in a better way. So here is another college in the San Diego area, again, which is a little bit more diverse, but not super diverse in terms of, you know, populations, depending on the neighborhood. And this is on LinkedIn. So already you kind of see that there's a person posting this one, right? Which is great because you've got Franklin Garrett. He's an existing dean at the college, and he's posting it. He himself is a person of color. It's very inviting that there's a human face attached to this kind of call. And then it says, are you passionate about improving the educational outcomes of Black and male students of color? Do you have experience providing counseling and advising services, coordinating events and activities, developing strategies? If so, you might be the perfect candidate for the position of Black Student Success Counselor at San Diego College of Continuing Ed. We're looking for a dynamic, dedicated professional who can offer strategic direction to improve and then there's some description. If you're interested, the application deadline. So what do you think about this approach to recruitment? Diane Cherry says Franklin's is much more positive launch. Yeah, definitely a more positive launch. There's no phrase in there that says you should not apply. Right, because in the previous example, it was like, don't worry about applying. Like, we don't want you. And this is more personalized. Robin says, yes. So you can kind of see, like, right, belonging begins with people of color wanting to belong to your institution as well. We want to create belonging for our students, but it starts with representation. This one's restrictive. Yes, and gender, it offers potential encouragement and still gives specifics. Great comments. Yeah. And then of course the actual job description will have more details on it, but it's very inviting. It's very positive. Again, there's a human face related to it. And I would also ask you with this previous example, would you ever put any of these comments in your syllabus if you're a faculty member? Would you ever say, hey, if you can't handle the quadratic formula, or a multi-source research paper, please don't bother to take my class, right? You don't belong in my class. You'd never put that in a syllabus. So why would you put that in an HR job announcement, right? So those would be my questions too. Definitely much better. All right, so that's one example of kind of creating belonging at the macro level. Again, these are probably extreme cases, but I bet you have not looked most recently at a job announcement for your district or college. Go and find one out there for whatever, a staff member, faculty member, doesn't matter. And then look at some of the fine print and see how would that be viewed through the lens of a person of color? How would they think about that? All right, let's do another example. So counseling. Counseling is a really important door. I kind of mentioned that even me growing up, I really relied on counseling and support because I didn't have anybody at home who could kind of help me navigate the intricacies of higher education and scheduling and what to take. Financial aid offices are really important for kind of, helping students get what they need. A few things that we tend to see with financial aid is kind of these performative poverty, we call it, requirements, where we require students to really show and prove that they are poor in order to qualify them for aid. And oftentimes those requirements are not even really needed, but we sort of do it because it satisfies our own curiosity for the student. And also we've created sort of these bureaucracies to surveil and monitor students without being that helpful. So kind of these processes that are very busy, but that ultimately sometimes miss the mark. And the example I'm going to give to you is about counseling, because counseling seems pretty straightforward. And this is from a local college that actually has quite a bit of resources. They have almost 30 full-time counselors. It's a big institution. And this example is actually my son. So he was a high school student who was entering the community colleges. And so he's a 12th grader. And he called this local college because he had a question about his AP scores. He'd taken his AP test and he's like, well, does it count for English 1A or do I still have to take English 1A? And I was like, call a counselor, call your college counselor. Like, I'm trying to enable him. I don't want to do anything for him. He's growing up. So he called his college, counseling department on April 12th. And he has this registration date, okay, April 12th. So 2 weeks in advance, almost March 31st, he calls and he says, hey, and there's a person that picks up and says, sorry, we don't make appointments. You have to call Monday at 8. We only let you make appointments Monday at 8. So already he feels sort of reprimanded, right? He feels a little bit like, oh, I'm not supposed to call. Okay, I have to call next week at Monday at 8. Mind you, his school starts at 8:15. So he's a senior in high school. So that's already a problem there that you're creating. He's going to have to either miss school or not be able to get an appointment. So a week later, he calls at 8. He has a 35-minute wait time. So he did actually miss his first period because they put him on hold. So again, another feeling where he's kind of feeling rejected, like no one's getting to me. I spent 35 minutes on hold. And then he talks to a human. The next available appointment is not until the following Wednesday. So now you're asking like a 17-year-old to really have a lot of grit, right? He has like this question and you didn't let him talk to a human. You made him call back on Monday. And then when he made the appointment, the next available was a week later. So then on that Wednesday, the 14th, it was supposed to be a Zoom meeting because again, he has class. He's in high school. There's no Zoom link, no email. He's like, oh my gosh, mom, he's freaking out. They forgot about me. They didn't give me a Zoom link. I didn't get my appointment. And then 17 minutes after the appointment, was supposed to start, he got a call from the counselor. The counselor couldn't answer the question about the AP score. So he went through all this. He got the appointment. He asked the question. He couldn't get his question answered. And the counselor was like, I'll email you back with that information. And then she forgot to get back to him. So this journey, and by the way, I have a PhD and I work in the community college system, and I was able to guide him on the side and coach him and like, hang in there, try this, call back, go to your appointment, kiddo. You got this. I'm like building him up. Imagine this child being the child of immigrant parents who work multiple jobs, who don't speak, a language. He's already half-heartedly trying to go to college when really he needs to work and make money for his family and contribute to the household income. You are asking a lot of our students who don't have cultural capital. If my son, who has all the privilege in the world of having me on his side, is about to just quit and give up, right? What's wrong with that? right? So a question I have for you in chat is, how would you fix this process? If you were in charge, right? You're in charge of counseling appointments, and your goal is to create belonging for your students and help them. How would you sort this out? What would be some strategies that you would implement if they brought you in to fix this? Put it in chat, or you can unmute yourself and say something. Automatic appointment system. I suggested that, they didn't like that because they said students don't show up and then we have a bunch of missed appointments. Zoom appointment schedule. Yep, well, it was Zoom. Start to understand the situation from the first call. Yeah, multiple ways to reach out. Chat, phone. Yes, absolutely. And then hire more people. Yeah. And by the way, this college has a lot of counselors, so it's a matter of like just managing it, I think, right? Love those suggestions. All of, especially the multiple access opportunities. That's very student-centered, especially our younger students. They want at the point of access, right? They want support at the point of access. So yeah, so the fix would be, like many of you are suggesting in chat, the ability to make online appointments without calling and being placed on hold, the ability to make appointments same day or same week, sending a Zoom link in advance with automated reminders so that people are not like, oh, you forgot about me, and you know they don't want me. Be prompt, let the student know you're running late, ensure that the experts have the answers, follow up, having a mechanism to track. And I'm not faulting the college because I think that particular counselor probably was rushed. They're probably with another student. Maybe that student was having a crisis, right? There are a lot of circumstances where it's okay to be late and there's a reason, but it's about communicating that to the next person in line and making sure that that person understands that they're not forgotten and that we still got you and we still want you and we still want to speak with you, right? So great. I like the triage and simple questions first and having a better way to organize a call center. Love those. Those are great. All right, I have one more example. How am I doing on time, Michelle? Do I have time for one more?
I think that you do. Yes,
Okay,
we have
all
about 5 minutes. Yeah.
I'll get to this one pretty quickly. So going back to kind of something that's unique to, I think, not just California, but a lot of other states too. We have Assembly Bill 19 in California, which is the free college, essentially. And it funds free tuition for 2 years. And there's only 2 requirements that the Assembly Bill has for students to get free tuition, which is not income-based, by the way. Okay, everybody gets it. So my son got free tuition, even though I didn't need it, but that's just because he fulfilled it and they automatically gave it to him. You have to be a student with 12 units load. So you need 12 units of classes, and then you need to complete the FAFSA. So if you have that, the state covers your tuition for 2 years for spring and fall, not summer. And that's exciting because that's a lot of money that students could get. It eliminates a major barrier for our students, right? So here's how one local college handled their AB 19 money. So AB 19 says, here's what the requirements are, with the state, and then you go create a process for distributing these funds. So one college, to get this free money out, required a counseling course at the high school level for students to qualify, made students write an interest form, fill out an interest form in high school, and then an application. They required students to maintain a 3.0 GPA in order to continue receiving tuition for the free money. Required at least 3 units of on-campus courses, and the rest could be online. Had 1 required counseling appointment per term, and you know how I feel about the required counseling appointments, right? Required orientation and family night. Required return of rented textbooks and devices, and then required clearance of any other holds, like library holds, to keep their aid. So take a moment, drop in chat what you think. Diane's already like, required counseling course, no. Required family night. Not everybody has a family. The 3.0 GPA is real tough, right? Other thoughts about the requirement? Policy doesn't seem to match the law. Yes, Colleen, great point. And this is what I mean by like, we're well-intentioned. And I actually had the opportunity to speak to the person who was arranging for this program, that was the lead of this program. And my question was sort of like, why are you doing so? Like, why are you requiring all this? You're being extra, as my son would say. This is so extra. And his response to me was, well, we're trying to teach the students a lesson about responsibility. Nothing's free. If we're giving them free money, we want them to appreciate and be responsible. And I was like, yeah, but that's not the goal of the funds, right? The goal of the funds is to encourage students to take classes and complete and get paid you're creating these barriers. Like you're kind of giving them this parenting lesson that they didn't need or want from you. And that's what I mean by that paternalism, right? It doesn't create belonging when we're holding them accountable to all these new requirements. It actually creates barriers for them. So that's a great insight from Colleen on there. So, let's fix it. Let's fix it. Some of the feedback that I've been asked to provide to colleges is along this line. No interest form. Retroactively put them in the program. If they have 12 units and they filled out the FAFSA, they're in. Why are we making them fill out an interest form? We already have their application. No required additional college success course or counseling course. No extra application. No family night, because not all children and students and adults have families. No hiring of multiple caseworkers, which this college did. So they spent a lot of the AB 19 money on hiring success coaches and caseworkers instead of distributing the money directly to the student. So they spent the money, but they spent it on an infrastructure of like surveillance rather than giving students the money to help them feel belonging and feel like they could pay their bills and pay for their books, because that's really what makes people feel comfortable, right? Is making sure their bills are paid. Don't make students prove that they're poor or in need by filling out forms and telling you why they're poor. You have their FAFSA. You already know what their anticipated family contribution is. So cutting out anything performative poverty, we call it, right? Cutting out any requirements around that. And then adding those extra layers. Just stick to what's mandated. Stick to what's mandated so we're not creating additional barriers. And then spend the dollars on the students, not on the bureaucracy of monitoring technology or personnel and processes to control them and find out where they are. So those are kind of the fixes. So as I hand it off to my wonderful colleague, I will just kind of end with some general guidelines to promote belonging. Start by examining your team and recruitment processes. Obviously, that was my first example, is take a look and have an honest conversation about your team. Does your team and your staff represent the students that you serve? And if not, what's the problem? And how can you kind of address that gap? Remove barriers and requirements for your online students, so like requiring that on-campus class, for example, is one of my pet peeves, because we have a lot of students that prefer to be fully online now. They have various needs for accessibility and family and jobs. Avoid adding requirements to existing policies, right? That's the big one. Don't parent your students. Don't try to teach them lessons about responsibility. They come in with cultural capital and trust that they have these skills, but rather kind of empower and support them instead. And investing in student need, not surveillance and monitoring. When you take care of their basic needs, that's going to help them feel good and be able to focus on what they need, not worrying about the 20 other requirements that sort of we've created. And then finally, my biggest kind of thing for you to think about is sort of your roles as powerful initiators, contributors, and decision makers. That all of you, regardless of your role, whether it's staff, faculty, management, board of trustees member, whatever your role is, you have agency. That these decisions are not made in a vacuum, and that you're probably at the table and there's conversations being had. And my question to you would be, how can you insert yourself into that? And how can you be a part of that when those decisions are being made to kind of help steer things the right way? So I know that was a lot in a short time, but thank you so much. I will hand it back to Michelle.
Thank you, Marina. That was terrific. I will pass it over to Dana now.
Thank you so much. Hopefully you will see my screen in a moment.
Yes, we see it.
Awesome, thank you. So my name is Dana Gullo. I am the Associate Dean for Teaching, Learning, and Technology here at Cecil College. And I wanted to give you some of my background, like Marina did, which I don't have as nearly cute of a picture as she had, however. But I do want to discuss some of the barriers that she discussed with underrepresented groups, and I do as well, but where it comes to students with disabilities. When I was younger and I was in K through 12, I also felt some of the stigma that students with disabilities experience or neurodivergent. When I was younger, I don't know why I did this, but we used to take those standardized tests. I'm sure all of us have experienced them. I grew up in New Jersey, and the ones that we took were called CAT tests. And for whatever reason, I decided to make little drawings out of the bubbles that we had to fill out for the test. I didn't realize the importance of these exams. To me, I was just kind of bored, probably, most likely. And because I did that, the result of it was that I had to be placed into a remedial English course. It was for comprehension and reading. Did not realize that. My mom wanted to strangle me when she found out exactly what I did. But as a result, I had to take this course, which is fine. But where I really felt that kind of stigma and honestly embarrassment was during our regular English class. We had a person, two people actually came to the classroom and told me I had to leave with them to go to this special remedial English class. Not normally a big deal, you would think, but of course, my classmates were looking at me laughing, thinking, why does she have to go to this other special class? And yes, I did feel embarrassed. And it took some time to get out of this type of class for years. It actually took my mom until high school to get me out of the remedial courses. No, I was a fortunate one, okay? Very different, but I also felt that stigma. And ever since I had felt that, I just feel like I needed to empower those who are at least underrepresented. And that was one of the main beliefs. So some of my beliefs about our students in online courses, and when I always have the lens of students with disabilities, but really this applies to all students within online learning. Number one, our students are not just the traditional age. They're older now, and they have significantly more responsibilities. Family, most have multiple jobs and having to take care of their families. We also have to keep in mind that technical skills really vary significantly in online learning. We should never just assume because maybe a student is of the traditional age, they're going to be great at technology. That's not always the case. They may be good at social media and looking at their phones and so on, but ask them to put an attachment to something or use it to research, completely different story. And again, this really varies highly. One thing that I noticed too is that students often look for academic supports from their classmate, friends, and faculty. Online students typically feel isolation. Now, just real quickly in the chat, can you write if you were actually teaching at the time of the quick transition to online learning during COVID? Just out of curiosity, if you were teaching at that time. I think most of us probably in this room were. Can't see the chat, so if Michelle, you can let me know.
A lot
Get
of
some yeses.
positives.
A lot of
a whole
yeah.
string of yeses.
Okay, we were probably all working in higher ed at that time, and what a huge shift that was. And I think the majority of people, and faculty included that I spoke with, this feel of isolation, we all felt it, kind of being thrust into it. So that need of community building and belonging was at its peak. And I think it still feels that way, at least to me personally. Also, many students hesitate to disclose their disabilities to their professors or even to their peers. I definitely felt that at the beginning when I had those issues in K through 12, but just through the research that I've had of students, they typically like to hesitate and wait before disclosing their disability, especially transitioning from high school to college. They feel like, okay, this is my chance. This is a new start. I can get this. I can go through it. And then once they're in it and try, and then they realize these barriers are there, that's when they start to realize maybe I need to reach out. But sometimes professors are intimidating. So we have to keep that in mind and have that positive feeling, kind of like what Marina was showing you with those job posts. Wow, how negative that one was. Well, I've seen that in syllabi. So if you're setting the tone from the jump, that right away, you will not pass, you will not do this. Maybe you can't do this math problem, get out, but still those negative kind of reinforcement in your syllabus right away. If somebody is a little insecure about their learning, right off the bat, they're going to feel insecure and perhaps may not succeed, or at least not reach out to you as a professor. Mental health disorders have increased significantly since the onset of COVID-19. I saw that in students and I saw it in faculty, and I know that still continues to be an issue. And students encounter challenges with accessibility of digital documents. And if you're unfamiliar with that, basically what I'm meaning are Word documents, videos without closed captioning or transcripts, any kind of images without alternative text. And I think the biggest offenders, which are PDF files as well as PowerPoints. Because yeah, speaking of death by PowerPoint, if you just have images and a student needs an assistive technology, say like a screen reader, it's all images. And if there's no names to them other than the long numbers and list of wherever they got the image from online, it's not going to be descriptive. So that's definitely a barrier. Just wanted to start off with some stats. I am a stats nerd, but 1 in 4 of adults in the United States have some type of disability. And 20.5 of undergraduate students have reported having some type of disability. And I'm sure this is underreported because, as I mentioned earlier, because of stigma, it does kind of hold people back from actually going to the professors and declaring that they need an accommodation, or sometimes they don't even know that accommodations are available to them. And just as a little backstory, I was in college at the time earning my EDD, and it was right during COVID. And right at that time, I was always interested and I wanted to do some research about students with disabilities and online learning. I think COVID hit. So then right away, I was thinking, oh man, I really would love to know students who were in face-to-face only on campus courses, what were their experiences like when it totally switched to online learning? Did they do better? Did they struggle? I would love to know, versus those who were 100% online, were ready for that, and were in the courses. And I just surveyed a very small community college, very rural, out in the Midwest, right at the peak of COVID. Some had some survey fatigue, so unfortunately my responses were a little lower. Nobody wanted to meet with me to discuss it, but they did take the survey. And what I found from that information was really eye-opening, and some things that I did not expect whatsoever. And some I kind of did. With their LMS, they had some difficulty submitting assignments, so maybe little LMS issues there. Difficulty with the organization of the course, so how the course was laid out. Maybe they didn't have an instructional designer. Maybe the faculty, again, because of this quick shift, they only taught face-to-face, and now they were in this online environment. And in this particular institution, they literally had a week to put all of their course material into the LMS. Many didn't have training, so that's a huge shift. One thing that I thought was really eye-opening was the difficulty communicating with their faculty and classmates. That was big. So that was 40%. So was that through email? Was it they didn't know how to communicate in the class, like in the learning management system or not? But the biggest one was difficulty taking online exams. And from what I did with a little digging, interviewing some of the administrators at the college, it was the proctoring software that they used. A lot of students with anxiety disorders had a hard time having the camera on them as they were taking the exam. Some were, they had ADHD, and again, anxiety, or just not being able to be at the testing center to take it in person was also the big issue. And also just the bandwidth. Some of them just had poor internet connection. So they literally had to take an exam on their computer in the parking lot of the school. So, I mean, it was a challenging time, as we all know. But what I wanted to know, what went right, during this, and actually a lot of things did go right at this institution. And what were the 5 top support systems? This is what was really telling to me. And again, kind of circles us back to the sense of belonging. And it was that their support systems during this time, classmates, 80%, friends, 70%, and faculty, 70%. Unfortunately, family was way down low. That's that's kind of sad. They didn't reach out to their parents, but we don't know what the situation was like. So really just knowing that these were their biggest support groups, and then they were isolated because of COVID and the barrier of the LMS, and perhaps their instructors not knowing how to use the LMS that well. I mean, they were going through their own transition and shift. So again, this is when it kind of made me realize, like, the sense of community, the sense of connection was so important. I already knew that in online learning, but even heightened because of COVID. So with that in mind, I came up with some general guidelines to promote online learning. Again, this helps students with disabilities, and this helps students in general in online courses. So it's the real universal design for learning kind of feeling. Design it for everyone, and everybody hopefully will be successful, or at least have the tools to be successful. Ensuring that the materials that you give in your class are accessible, meaning have closed captions to those videos or transcripts, making sure your documents have the appropriate headings, and inclusive language. Again, going back to that syllabus, making sure that you have a more positive, inclusive feeling, so students will feel less intimidated by you, and will feel open to email you and let you know that they do have, in fact, have a disability. Maybe they didn't disclose it with the office, but at least let you know I may need a little extra time. I may need to meet you on a weekly basis to go over certain assignments. May or may not, but at least feel comfortable to do that. Offer flexible learning options. So maybe those deadlines are a little soft. I know this could be a sore topic for folks, but if you do have some flexibility with assignments, that would be helpful for anxiety and for so many different reasons. As I started off with the presentation, a lot of people have multiple responsibilities with family. So we don't know what their schedules are like. So perhaps giving them a little more grace on their assignments. Encourage open communication. Again, your syllabus statements. I'd like to have at least one paragraph, kind of like an intro to me and why I even got into teaching in the first place, to kind of show my passion, but also just kind of relying that, hey, we're all trying to learn. I'm open, to be flexible. Just show that you care and that you are encouraging them to succeed in the class, not if you don't do this, you'll fail, and so on and so forth. Start off at the beginning with positivity, and hopefully they'll feel comfortable to reach out to you. Use diverse teaching materials and methods. And thinking of this, and maybe in different varieties, maybe not always just written, but maybe something more with visuals, videos, audio, and maybe think too, of course, the big buzzword now that's out there is AI in higher ed. So thinking about students with disabilities, different formats or different explanations, perhaps, why don't we use some of these tools that are now available to us, like the GPTs? So that made me start thinking, and in my next slide or two, I'll show you what I mean by that. Encourage peer-to-peer interaction and collaboration to foster a sense of belonging and teamwork. I know sometimes having group projects in online learning can be a little tough. And in the beginning, it may feel like students are a little hesitant, but as they're working together on these projects, that's where the real learning comes in. It's a lot of reflecting, talking with each other, coming up with these projects and really learning. And again, having that sense of belonging and using some of these inclusive technology tools. So with those tools, which I found a few in my research that I thought were really helpful. One, I'm actually a part of Molly, if you haven't heard of that. And we came up with a project where we do have a list of the current at the second, because it's constantly changing and evolving, of the different types of generative AI tools that are available. And I'm going to make my screen a little bit smaller so you can see the tabs that I have open so we could check out these tools. But so that way you can get a list of what's currently out there. And then there's something called goblin tools. Never heard of that in my life. My colleague loves this because the word goblin, but it's an awesome tool. And again, these can be used with neurodiverse students, but it's for anyone. This tool in particular, a student can take a prompt, which I'll show you in a moment, for a discussion board, and it breaks it down into different tasks. You should start with this, then next try this. It breaks it down so they feel a little less overwhelming. So that could be helpful. And it also gives them an estimate on how long it could potentially take the assignment. It is using like a ChatGPT type tool to kind of give them this breakdown, but it kind of gives them a jumping board at the start, kind of how can I even tackle this assignment? Doesn't tell them how to write it. It just tells them how to break it down to make them into manageable chunks. Another one that I found out was called Gen AI Chatbot Prompt Library for Educators. This actually gives you example prompts as a faculty member that you can use, and then you fill in the blanks for your assignments. And it can kind of help create different scenarios perhaps for your assignments, or it gives you good analogies, whatever kind of help. And this link in particular that I have is for students. So it can help them break down assignments as well, or make flashcards, practice quizzes, whatever they may need to help with their learning. So I thought that was a really great tool. Another favorite of mine, it's ASU Online's image accessibility tool. And what I've read about this one, it does not keep your content, or it's thinking about privacy, unlike a ChatGPT where it does collect data. This does not. This one is especially for images. So if you have that PowerPoint that I was talking about earlier that has like 20 images, it takes a while to write out the description, and maybe it's not as descriptive. Well, this, you can actually put an image in and it'll give you a very detailed description that you can use as alternative text. I find that to be a huge time saver for faculty because I know that does take some time to do. So I'm going to get out of this so I can at least show you And of course, my Zoom bar is in front of all of my tabs, so I cannot open them. So I'm going to unshare for just a second. Are there any questions while I'm doing this part? I'm going to stop my share if I can.
Dana, so far, no questions in the chat.
Okay, great.
We do have some positive affirmations for the breakdown, the Goblin site that you're going to
Oh,
show
nice.
us could
Okay, great.
help, particularly in language classes. And another participant said they've tried that Goblin tool
Mm.
and it's a great resource.
Yeah, I really enjoy that resource. So the first link that I'm showing you is this AI tool comparison. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but ones that are highly used is the ChatGPT, Gemini, which was formerly Bard's, and now it's even changing its name. Bing Chat, if you've used that one, what I found interesting, that's actually now ChatGPT 4, and it also has DALL-E in it. So if you want to play around with images, like creating them yourself, now you can actually do that for free. I'm sure there's a limit on how many you can do, but it's something that I was like, wow, this is a pretty interesting tool. Definitely check it out. And then there's Midjourney, Lensa, DALL-E, and Gamma that does presentations, and Claude. That's one that I do really enjoy myself. And of course, I cannot get over to my tabs. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to unshare one more time. Okay, so here's that Goblin Tools. So when you're in here, I click on the Magic to Do, and you'll notice these little chili peppers. If you can see that,
There we
I
go.
hope you can. There you go.
Now we
May
can
have
see it,
been-
Dana.
All
Thank
right,
you.
great. So when you go to Goblin Tools, click on Magic to Do. And in there, that's where you can go in and put an assignment in there. So I have one already written out. So I'm just gonna select this. You add the new item in, and then you decide how much breaking down do you need? And you see it can go up to like, I think it's like 5 different chili peppers, which I think is cute. So if I wanted to do it at its max, I can slide that on over, and then I'll hit plus. So it puts in the prompt and it does save it. So this is also very helpful for students. Then I can click on this little breakdown item. So once I do that, it starts to analyze it. This is when it's doing the ChatGPT part. And you'll notice that it goes and it breaks down, first start to reflect, then formulate, write a detailed explanation. So again, for students with dyslexia or ADHD, whatever help that they need, this can potentially do it. And if you click on the drop down, you'll see there's also an estimate. So if I do that, it'll go in and then it'll tell me approximately how long, about 1 day and 1 hour, to do this one particular task. Is it perfect? Probably not, but at least it's something that is helpful and gives them kind of a start on how to tackle the assignment instead of just being overwhelmed. Because I did actually have a student she did disclose to me that she had ADHD and that she gets overwhelmed very easily. Just the original, just initial looking at the assignment. And I even offered, I'm like, you may want to try this tool. This may be able to help break it down and make it useful to you. So the next tool that I really wanted to show, because I think we're running a little bit low on time.
Yeah, Dana, we do have about 10 minutes left. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. This is the one that I think is pretty helpful to faculty. This is the ASU Image Accessibility Creator. So what it wants is you to add a file, so an image. This would be good too for like, say, charts, diagrams, something that has a lot of data in it that may take you a really long time to do. So I wanted to find an image that I felt that was kind of complicated, that had some graphics and text involved. So I'm going to click on where it says Browse Files. I'm going to locate a file. I took a screenshot of a presentation that I was in. So you see there's like all kinds of gradients going on. There's images, text. It's got this like hexagons, you name it. So I was curious, how well will this actually do? So I click on Create Image Details. It takes a moment. And then over to the right, it's going to write it down under Image Description. And just like that, within, what was that? a millisecond. I don't even know how long that was. I was just kind of in awe of how quickly and how accurate. I mean, it talks about the top center hexagon is colored blue, labeled with curriculum strategy, and it goes through each hexagon, even discussing this element here. But what I really like, so other than just the description, which is very detailed, it gives you the alternate text too. So something that's more abbreviated, succinct, that you can put into the alt text. How quick is that? So I'm sure you need to go through it and make sure that, there isn't any spelling errors or little mistakes here and there, especially in the sciences and perhaps math. It may get tripped up a second, but I just thought that was fantastic. This is one of those tools I think that could be helpful for so many people. I would love for you to try it right now. So I'm going to stop my share and put the link in the chat. And I just want to get feedback from you all on what you think about this tool. You could also Google Image Accessibility Creator, ASU, to find it as well. So they do make it kind of easy. So I'll give you just a couple moments. Thank you, Marina. Yeah, I was just like, I hear that from faculty so much. It's, again, the good intentions, like Marina was mentioning earlier. We all have those good intentions. We want to make sure that our materials are accessible to everyone. And this isn't just with students with disabilities. This is English as a second language, where it's incredibly helpful. Just the busy person. I don't know how many times, when I was in school as a student, the only time I could really do some of the videos that my instructor wanted me to watch was when I was driving. So I could listen to the video instead of just reading everything. I mean, even as corny as being on the treadmill, I didn't have a headset, but I could read the captioning that was on the video. So it's flexibility, reducing those barriers, feeling that my instructor cares about my learning goes a long way. I don't know how many times I've taught courses or been in courses myself where the instructor doesn't give any feedback on discussion boards. I almost after a while got a little resentful. Like, I'm putting in all this work and not one bit of information or anything from my instructor. That caring makes you feel like, okay, the effort that I'm putting in, I can tell they care, and I'm going to even work that much harder. So imagine if all of your materials, or very close to all of your materials, are accessible to everyone, and feeling like you belong to this class, especially if you're a first-gen student. Just imagine what that can mean to them and giving them that confidence for learning. So adding even something as simple as alternative text and description to an image can make someone that reduce that barrier right away. So I'm glad to see that some people are really enjoying the tool. So I'll show one last one, and then I'm sure we'll have time for questions if there are. I hope you like that. Please share it. I thought that was a fantastic tool. So this is that Gen AI chatbot prompt, and this is the one I did just for students. And what I really liked about it, is like if you needed some college essay ideas, summarizing some text to help them out, just flashcards. So what it does is it gives you a prompt. You are a diligent, and then put in the grade level and the subject, student, skilled in creating excellent study materials that help you achieve academic success. Your task is to define the following, and then the number of terms, insert terms, format the terms and definitions so I could easily use them to create flashcards. So in a moment, it's going to make flashcards. So here's an example prompt that you can use and put into your favorite GPT, and you will again see in seconds, it will give you all this information to help you study. So this is the student side, but you can certainly go to the main link and go into just for faculty, and it could help you create rubrics. It could help you give you another format or analogy for your assignment, help you with charts. I mean, you name it, it can help you. Absolutely. Of course, we always have to think too, attributing that you did use GPT to work with it, just to kind of set that precedent with your students, that you're citing your sources and where you got your information from. But still, it's something that could be a useful tool for your students in learning. And again, ultimately, hopefully providing more flexibility and showing that belonging to your students. Are there any questions about any of these tools or any that you would like to share in the chat that you have used that helps reduce those barriers?
So Dana, we do have a question in the chat that says, for the image accessibility creator, it says OpenAI doesn't store the data.
Right.
Does ASU do the same?
Supposedly. Yes, not working there, but yes, supposedly it does not store the data. So I'm hoping that's true. I'd have to do a little bit more digging on that because that is an issue. I know some faculty were even concerned about the one that breaks down the information. They don't want their assignments being posted and saved, and I get that. So that's where we need to start creating our own GPT, where we know it's just from our own institution and our materials, and we know that one, there's no hallucinations, that it's incorrect information, it's our institution's information. And again, it's you don't have to worry about intellectual property, you don't have to worry about copyright issues or storage of data. So these are all concerns that we do need to think about. It's not all perfect. This is just the beginning. So I'm hoping that it just improves from here on. Great question, though.
That is a good question. It's a very important consideration. Any other questions for either of our presenters? We are nearing the top of the hour. You're welcome to put questions in chat or raise your hand, and we can hear your question. We're getting a lot of positive affirmations in the chat about the information shared today, and thank yous. All right, well, I'm not seeing a lot of questions. I think that points to the fact that it was a very thorough presentation with a lot of great content today. I want to thank Dr. Aminy and Dr. Gullo for sharing their expertise with us today. We do have some links posted in the chat. You might have to scroll up just a little bit to see them, just to share your thoughts about today's presentation and for you to get information about upcoming Molly events. You would be absolutely welcome to join those activities as they come. So I think with that, we will say good afternoon or enjoy the rest of your morning to Dr. Aminy. And thank you for joining today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Great to spend this time with you. Bye-bye.